There are thousands upon thousands of men and women on this continent whose job it is to write the words that come out of politicians' mouths. Most of those words, frankly, are forgettable. Unless, of course, you are writing for a politician considered one of the greatest political orators of all time. Then it's a pretty daunting assignment. And with that, we welcome Sarada Peri, speechwriter to former President Barack Obama, to talk about who wrote "Yes, We Can" and millions of other words that came out of the mouth of America's 44th president. She is in Ontario's capital city as a visiting global fellow at the new Ryerson Leadership Lab. And with that, we are delighted to welcome you here to our studio.
Thank you for having me.
How did you first hear about Barack Obama to begin with?
So I first heard about Barack Obama when he was a state senator
in Illinois.
I was at the time actually working for a small nonprofit that worked with progressive state legislators. And so, we were always kind of keeping our eyes out for interesting progressive state legislators, and that's when I first heard about him.
And he fit that bill.
Yeah.
When did you meet him then?
I met him when I started working for him, which was in 2014.
So you didn't know him from his time as a state senator?
I did not know him. He was somebody I knew was on the radar screen, and obviously I followed his presidential campaign and was a huge fan. At the time when he won in 2008, I was actually working on Capitol Hill for a senator, a Democratic senator, former Senator Mary Landrieu from Louisiana.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was actually, she was up for re-election that same year, and so I was in New Orleans at her victory party the night Senator Obama became President Obama, and it was quite extraordinary.
So how'd you get the gig?
So a few years later, at the time, in 2010, I moved over to a speechwriting firm called West Wing Writers, which was started by former President Clinton's speechwriters. And I was there, having switched over from policy to speechwriting. And in 2012, we, my firm and some other speechwriters, ran the speechwriting shop at the 2012 Democratic Convention. The person who would become President Obama's chief speechwriter, Cody Keenan, saw my work there. We knew of each other. And a couple of years later, he called me one day and said, "Hey, you want to come write speeches for the president?"
How long did you pause before responding yes?
I actually kind of sputtered and said something that is unrepeatable on television, but "Are you kidding me?" is what was my response.
Are you effing kidding me?
Right.
Okay,
that was
like that.
Because I'm from New Jersey, so that's our response. Yeah.
How does one learn how to be a presidential speechwriter?
I think I was a speechwriter before I started working for President Obama, and I was lucky that I came in year 6 into a well-oiled, operation. At that point, President Obama had really sort of clearly articulated sort of his vision for America and where we were, and my boss, Cody, and our whole team had kind of set up a really sort of great process for managing our speeches. But the way I learned to write for him was that I just spent a lot of time absorbing him. So, you don't get a ton of time with the leader of the free world. So, I read everything he had written and all of his speeches, and, I would, in my time with him, sort of try to inhabit the mind and soul of Barack Obama, which meant, if he was on Jimmy Kimmel, I was watching it. If he was, doing a Q&A, I would watch it. So just trying to absorb his thinking.
Okay, because I presume when you get in there, somebody gives you a list of, here are the do's, here are the don'ts, here's what he loves, here's what he hates. Do you remember what's on any of that list?
Yeah, no, that wasn't quite how it was. Before I started, I was sent sort of a list of his foundational remarks, from the 2004 Democratic Convention, important speeches throughout the campaign to get a sense of sort of where he came from and what his vision was, and then other speeches throughout the administration. But no, there wasn't sort of a list of, he likes his commas here, or this is the font he prefers. It wasn't like that.
Okay. I want to play a little excerpt. This is from the first speech he ever gave as President of the United States. Roll it, please, Sheldon.
44 Americans have now taken the presidential oath. The words have been spoken during rising tides of prosperity and the still waters of peace. Yet, every so often, the oath is taken amidst gathering clouds and raging storms. At these moments, America has carried on not simply because of the skill or vision of those in high office, but because we, the people, have remained faithful to the ideals of our forebears and true to our founding documents.
He was a lot less gray in 2009. Do you notice?
Yeah, that was a recurring joke for us that we would insert.
I wonder how many different hands would have been on that inaugural speech.
I wonder too. I was not there, but my understanding is that at the time President Obama's chief speechwriter was Jon Favreau, and I believe that they worked together on it. Probably other sort of senior staff, and the process at that point was still a campaign process. Once we entered, well, certainly once I was in the White House, but probably once they enter the White House in the beginning of the administration, the process changes because now you're speaking from the White House, the official White House. And so we had a pretty rigorous process for speechwriting by the time I got there. So, you were working with the president on a draft. It was being edited by the chief speechwriter. It was then being vetted to make sure that we had a very rigorous fact-checking operation.
So how did that mistake get through? Do you know the mistake in there? This is one thing I've always wondered. He talked about the fact that 44 Americans have now taken the oath.
Oh.
And it actually was only 43. Because
yes.
Grover Cleveland was president twice.
Non-consecutive presidents, yes.
Yeah.
So again, the fact-checking operation that I know of was once he was in the White House. So somebody just messed up their presidential trivia.
That's shocking that a mistake got
that.
through in the inaugural address, though.
It is.
But the assumption is that there's probably 100 or 200 or 1,000 people who want to get their line or their fact or their something into that speech. How do you just go through that whole process of weeding out, no, we don't need this and we do need this?
It's a process. I think that half of a speechwriter's job, really in any bureaucracy, but certainly in the White House, is managing that process and figuring out what will actually enhance the president's message and what will detract from it because it will weigh it down with additional details. One of my colleagues once told me, we are the only people in the building whose only focus is to make sure that, President Obama's voice who focus on President Obama's voice and message. Everybody else has different agendas. They're important, but that's not what they're focused on. We're focused on that.
Okay, you came in, as you told us, in year 6, so I want to do a little sort of, let's do a for instance here, okay? The word comes down, the President of the United States is going to speak to the United States of Women Summit. We need, Sarada, we need a half-hour speech from you. Go. What happens next?
So then I would probably have a quick conversation with Cody, my boss, then to sort of talk out what approach we want to take. We'd probably touch base with the president, get his thoughts.
Touch base with the president means what? In the Oval Office? You and him and?
Probably Cody, maybe not. It depends.
So 2 or 3 of you?
Sure. Sometimes there were meetings where there were more people. I was, you don't get a ton of time with the president when you're the speechwriter. So it might be that he's going to talk through several different speeches with a few of us at once. So it varied. Meetings varied, but so you get kind of a sense of what he might want to say. And then you go back, and if it's a policy speech, you talk to policy folks in the building. In this case, I would talk to our Office on Women and Girls to find out what sorts of policies they might want to talk about, what programs they want to push, what's their message, and then I do my own research, and then start drafting, and then from there it's kind of you get edits from the speechwriting team, and then you start the vetting process.
How long would it take to hammer out a first draft?
However long you give me.
Oh, okay. It's like that, eh? So if I've got 6 hours, I'll take 6 hours.
Yeah.
If I've got 2 hours,
you do it.
You can hammer it out in 2 hours.
You have to.
You have to. Of course you do. The first time you walked into the Oval Office to meet with the president, to go over a speech that you had to write for him, what was that like?
It was terrifying. So I got summoned in to talk about a draft, and I'd met him, but we hadn't actually sat down to talk about work. And so I come in, and he's standing behind the desk, and he says, "Come on in." And he's really tall, and I'm really not. So already you're just sort of an intimidating interaction. And he picks up the speech, and he says, this is serviceable, but we can really make it sing. So why don't you sit down? Right. And so later on, I tell this story to Cody, and Cody says, he's got kind of 3 levels. There's needs work, serviceable, and good. So he's like, you're actually fine. I get serviceable all the time.
All right. Well, let's continue with that example of the Women's Summit. You remember this? This was June 2016.
I do.
Okay. Sheldon, let's roll the clip right now.
We just keep on looking for ways to get stuff done. They keep on waiting for this whole lame duck thing to happen. I don't. Let me tell you, it will happen as soon as I've elected a really good successor to carry on our policies. But
Now, I don't know this for sure. That's obviously about 5 months before the election. People are talking about him in lame duck terms because his term is almost over. I don't know this for sure, and that's why I want to ask you. That all felt ad-libbed. So you didn't write any of that.
I don't recall that I did. But
He's off script there.
maybe. I think part of it probably wasn't. Certainly the part about the successor, I think we probably did go over.
Do you get nervous when he goes off script?
No.
No?
Well, I don't. I mean, I think he's a brilliant guy. He's a great speaker, and you know, the purpose of a script is not to, at least in my view, keep him, you know, in line and in check and say all the beautiful words that we've crafted.
Well, it is for the incumbent.
It's to convey the message, and so, you know, if in that moment he feels like the right joke is going to, you know, hit it off with this audience, or he remembers a story of something that happened that morning and he feels like it's appropriate to insert it, and it's going to enhance his message, then go for it.
Okay, same speech, different clip. Let's see what you think of this one.
Okay.
Roll it, please, Sheldon.
I know you're really here to see Michelle. Or Oprah. Actually, they're together, so you're here to see both of them. I cannot compete with them. But I did want to stop by and make one thing very clear. I may be a little grayer than I was 8 years ago, but this is what a feminist looks like.
You wrote that part.
Yes.
There was no ad-libbing there, or very little anyway. That was all stuff you wrote. When you wrote that line, and you heard him deliver it, and you heard that reaction, what'd you think?
I was backstage, and I was really proud. I was just really proud of him. This was a speech that came from him. He wanted to, you know, issue this full-throated assertion of his feminism, and I was just really proud to work for somebody who wanted to do that. And the reaction was so great, as you know, we predicted it might be, because people were hungry to hear our leader speak in those terms. So it was exciting.
That turned out to be, I mean, that was a memorable line. This is what a feminist looks like. And the reaction was, well, you heard it. It was just, they were screaming. People loved it. How often
Twitter loved it.
Twitter loved it. How often does that happen when you write a speech for him? That you hit a home run like that?
I mean, he's the one who's hitting the home runs, right? So it's not about the line.
Well, it is about the line. It's the sorry, I'm going to disagree with you.
Sure.
It's the mixture of your line and his delivery.
Right, but anybody else saying that line wouldn't matter. So what I think is what's important to understand about sort of a great speech is that it's a credible speaker with great remarks that meet a moment. And when you have all three of these, then you get that reaction, right? So if I say that line, nobody's going to stand up and applaud for me, right? It really does matter that he wanted to say that line, and he felt, and it had a different kind of credibility and weight coming from him at a moment when we kind of really needed to hear it, because if you recall, the campaign was sort of getting ugly at that time, and we needed to be reminded that our leaders and our male leader felt this way. And so I think, yes, it was exciting that that this line worked with that crowd, but it was about more than the line. It was about what that line meant, right? And
you were backstage.
Yeah.
Why weren't you in the audience?
Because I had come to the speech as staff, right? I was staffing him, so I was by the teleprompter.
Wouldn't you love to have been in the crowd to just sort of soak all that up?
At another moment in my life, I can be in the crowd, but it was actually more extraordinary to have the chance to be backstage when Barack Obama was my boss.
Well, that's not a bad point. How much pressure is there on you to come up with ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country, or Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall? How much pressure to come up with an absolutely unforgettable Grand Slam home run that they're going to be quoting 50, 100 years from now?
I never felt that pressure, and I think that if a speechwriter is trying to come up with a line that will one day be etched in marble, they are probably in the wrong profession. That's not what, thinking about it as a line is not going to be that ends up being the memorable argument or the memorable speech. The line can help as a rhetorical device, but what you're really trying to do is make a compelling argument. And for someone like President Obama, he certainly has some memorable lines, but what people really remember was that initial argument that he made of hope during the campaign, and his view of what makes America exceptional, which is that people who love their country can change it. It was a continuing argument about his vision of America, and I don't know if one line, I wasn't thinking about it in terms of one-liners, and frankly, I feel like he probably would have looked at it and said, that's a line, I'm not going to say that. That sounds like a soundbite,
I'm totally pushing back on this. Sure. Teddy Sorensen, Peggy Noonan. People know the names of the people who wrote those immortal lines.
Sure.
Don't you want Sarada Peri's name to be on that list of people who wrote absolutely immortal lines that will be quoted for the next, for time immemorial?
Why?
Why? Because that's the game you're in.
That's not the game I'm in.
Well, you are sort of in that game. You are sort of in the immortality game. I'm sorry, you are.
I don't know if Theodore Sorensen would have thought of himself as trying to etch lines and write lines that would be etched in marble. I think he understood that President Kennedy was a gifted speaker, and that what they were doing was something special in terms of taking a moment where there was a kind of stasis in America and rejuvenating leadership and the notion of an active citizenship post-Eisenhower. I think he understood that, and he understood that he had somebody who was a thoughtful leader and could do that. But was he thinking that this is going to be the line that's etched on marble someday? I mean, maybe. Maybe that's something that people consider. But when you're actually doing the work, at least for me, you're so consumed with the work of getting the speech that feels authentic to a speaker. And in the case of a campaign, if you come up with the "Yes, we can" or whatever it is, that's the slogan for a campaign. That's amazing. If it accomplishes what you're trying to accomplish, if it moves people to the polls and gets you elected, if the line drives people or drives Congress to actually pass the policy you want, persuade somebody of the thing you're trying to do, but if it's just a pretty line, then
I
it's
take your
batched,
point. I tell you, job one certainly is to move yardsticks. Job two is to be remembered for the rest of all time.
Well, Barack Obama will be, and that was my job.
How about anything that you wrote for him? Do you think there will be anything that you wrote that will be quoted 50 years down the road?
I have no idea, honestly.
What's your favorite line that you ever heard come out of his lips that you typed?
I don't know if I have one. Again, I think I was proud of a line like that, but I think there were so many things he said that I was proud of, and certainly speeches we worked on together where I felt like what he said was amazing. But I don't think it comes down to a line. That's just how I think about speech writing.
Okay. How about after that Women's Summit speech? Yeah. Would you two have got together and done a bit of a postmortem on this worked, this did not work?
No.
No postmortems?
No. I mean, I'm sure that with his senior staff, he talked about what was working generally, maybe not with specific speeches. But, the White House is such a fast-paced environment, and you're moving on to the next thing so quickly. I mean, if you think about a President's Day or a Prime Minister's Day, in the morning they're at one event, then they're at a energy breakfast, then they're meeting with a member of Congress.
So,
I mean, it's
ahead.
Just so crazy, and so you can't stop.
Okay. Who did come up with "Yes, we can"?
You might know better than I do.
I thought it was David Axelrod, but I'm not sure.
That sounds right. I mean,
it does.
He's brilliant. So
he's taking credit for it in his book. So
then he did. So.
Well, you never know.
No, with him you know.
Okay. Let's. I want to talk a bit about life after Obama.
Sure.
Because you look at this beautiful backdrop here of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, and I bet you don't look at it the same way now that you did back then.
No, I only go there to protest. So.
Okay. Here's what we know. We know Hillary Clinton, whom I'm sure you voted for, got 3 million more votes than Donald Trump, but they were far too concentrated in far too few states. The fact is, there are broad swaths of your country right now where the Democratic Party is absolutely not competitive, not an option at all. What do you think the Democrats need to do about that?
Well, I think she did win by 3 million votes, but the reason she lost was about 70,000 votes in 3 states. Mm-hmm. So not by much. She actually did quite well.
3 states she didn't visit in the last days of the campaign that she probably should have.
And I think, right, and also, Russia, Trump media, et cetera.
Comey, long list. Yeah.
I think, frankly, I think all of us who supported her and are Democrats in America are still kind of reeling from this last election and trying to figure out what lessons to learn and what lessons not to overlearn. And I'm still trying to parse it myself. I think what we we should continue. There's a big fight right now, or not a big fight, but there are disagreements about whether the party ought to be sort of really focusing on working class whites and coming up with a message that resonates with them, whether we ought to be sort of, getting out the vote in our own base. And I would just posit that she actually did, in terms of her policies, have pretty clear ones for the people who did not vote for her, who voted for Trump, and that there might be other reasons why they voted for Trump. And that there's going to be a non-gettable vote, right? People who are never, ever going to vote for us, for Democrats. But we didn't have the turnout we had that we did for President Obama. And so,
because the candidate?
I think a whole bunch of reasons. And frankly, the Obama turnout was unusual also because there was this sort of excitement about him, right? And so we have to get out our base in the next election.
Here's you writing in New York Magazine earlier this year. The Democrats are still wondering how to listen to those who feel ignored. Should the party take a page out of the Trump playbook and focus on one group to the exclusion of others? Not only would doing so be impossible in a practical sense, it would also be an affront to everything this enormously diverse party stands for. The Democrats really are a truly diverse party. There's no question about that. But it has also given rise to this notion that you're all about identity politics now, and you've kind of, you've lost the core vote because you're so worried about lining up every single individual identity group that you're missing the forest for the trees. Do you think you have to play guilty to that?
How would you define identity politics?
Well, there are others who've written lots of books about this who can explain it much better than I can. But let's just say, if there's America, you're trying to hit labor with this message, you're trying to hit racialized minorities with this message, you're trying to hit LGBTQ people with this message. It is group by group by group by group by group, as opposed to having an overarching, cohesive message about what you're authentically about. And I know you hate Trump, but he did that. Mm-hmm. So that's
again,
I guess
to the
that's what I
exclusion
mean.
of many others, it was sort of very
absolutely.
So I kind of take issue with this recent criticism of the Democrats engaging in so-called identity politics. To me, it seems as though identity politics is when anyone expresses a concern about a policy that disproportionately affects a minority or a woman. And suddenly, we hear that white men feel excluded from that. As opposed to simply raising concerns that legitimately are disproportionately affecting certain groups, and also talking about what sort of more broadly Americans are going through. I actually think that she did do that. I think Democrats in general actually do that. But it's almost as though, as I say in my piece, by simply just mentioning an issue that disproportionately affects, say, African Americans, somehow a group of people feel like that means that you don't care about me. And it's a really difficult messaging problem. But I feel like it would be a dangerous mistake for Democrats to stop talking about issues that affect minorities and women as well as everyone else. Because first of all, that is the base of our party. Mm-hmm. Frankly, the sort of white working class that we are lamenting now hasn't voted for Democrats in a very long time.
Since the last candidate's husband.
It's a long time.
Well,
and
okay.
Even before then, right? We lost a ton of Democrats when Reagan ran. So I think we have to sort of be a little bit honest and rejigger some of this. And I also think, frankly, that we probably have to have a more honest conversation about why that nativist and racist language that Trump used to stoke his base and to excite them was successful, and why the Republican establishment was so willing to fall in line with that and with him.
They wanted to win, number one.
They wanted their tax cut for the rich and to appoint somebody to the Supreme Court, and that's fine.
All about winning,
yeah, and that's fine, except this was a disqualifyingly terrible candidate, right, who's now doing things that are really dangerous and raising a lot of alarms, and you just have to ask, at what point is the politics worth it?
Do you think he's at all getting the hang of acting more presidentially?
What is that? How do we define presidentially? He is president, so
I guess by definition he's acting presidentially because he is the president.
He is the president.
But is he less of a freak show today than he was back in January?
I don't think so. Do you?
I'm not going to offer any opinion on that.
I think what's really interesting is that every time he, reads a speech that somebody has written for him, people will, and manages, to spend 5 minutes not insulting anybody. The punditry is quick to say, well, this was the day Donald Trump became president.
How much do you think the current president is being driven crazy Sorry, let me rephrase.
Sure.
How much do you think Barack Obama is being driven crazy by what he sees currently coming out of the Oval Office?
So I would not profess to know President Obama, so personally well, but I suspect that it's not, that what's happening in the Oval Office and Donald Trump's behavior is not, making him personally upset in that way. I suspect, like the rest of, democracy-loving peoples everywhere, he's probably worried about the direction that the country is going in. But I don't think he's personally insulted by Donald Trump. I doubt he really cares, but I suspect he's just concerned like the rest of us.
Gotcha. So good of you to spend so much time with us here tonight at TVO.
So good of you to have me.
That's Sarada Peri, former speechwriter to President Barack Obama.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit TVO.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.